The Jamie Dyer Show.
My guest via the telephone today is Suzi Ruffell, who is performing, I should say, at the Comedia in Brighton on Tuesday, the 10th of April. For those people who aren't familiar with your work, how would you describe it?
I would say I'm sort of a confessed observational storyteller that's funny. Something like that.
So, the Keeping It Classy tour, can you give us a rundown about what that is?
Yeah, of course. So it's a show that I did at the Edinburgh Festival last year, and I got some really lovely reviews, and the run sort of sold out. And sort of off the back of that, I decided to take it on sort of a small tour around the country. And so it's about sort of, a lot of the show is about the fact that I am from a very working class background, but now I'm in a very middle class world, being in comedy. Comedy is a really middle class place a lot of the time. And so there's stuff about that. There's sort of stories about, I'm from Portsmouth originally, so stuff about growing up, finding out who you are. There's a big routine about a breakup. There's lots of different stuff really. It's sort of all, what I do every year is it's sort of all the things that have happened to me over the last year, and stuff that's happened politically and stuff that's happened in the papers and sort of within sort of society, and I sort of try and find my funny take on it. And so this year, a lot of it's to do with class, but then there is sort of other stuff thrown in as well.
That's really interesting, actually. You say that you grew up in Portsmouth. When did you move away from there?
I moved away when I was 18, so more than 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
That's amazing. So most of your material is about class, obviously, and news. How do you go about finding the news?
Well, to be honest, it's not necessarily me sort of seeking it out. It's stuff that sort of I keep seeing or I keep reading, and I think there's something about that I feel like I want to talk about on stage. And sometimes, it doesn't start off as something that's funny, but I think, well, this is a really interesting subject for me to take on. Let me work out how I can make it funny. And I think that's what I really enjoy doing as a comic. That's where the real craft is of being a comedian. But yeah, it'll be more than anything, it'll be stories that keep catching my eye, more than me picking out a story.
I mean, a lot of comedians are going for the whole Brexit thing. Do you steer clear of that?
I've got some stuff that's related to Brexit, because you can't, you can't call yourself a commentator and not talk about the biggest thing that's happened within the UK economy in decades, so it's, or that's not happened. But not heavily, I'd say, not heavily. I'd sort of briefly mention it, but in the way that, if I didn't, it would be a bit remiss to talk about sort of social inequalities without talking about the sort of referendum that we've had in my lifetime,
Yeah, so you're coming to Brighton on the 10th of April. Where else are you going?
Oh, I'm going all over the place. I've got, this week I'm going to Reading and Manchester, and then I have a run for a week at the Soho Theatre, Portsmouth and Bristol, and Nottingham and Birmingham and Bristol, Coventry, and a couple of others. So I'm sort of all over the shop. And then I go to Australia in June, and tour out there for a month.
You're coming to the Comedia. Have you been to that venue before?
Oh yeah, I've been to Comedia loads. I've played the Crater Night, that's what it's called, Crater Comedy Night. I've done that quite a few times, and then I've done Bent Double, and I took my tour show there last year. I was on tour last year with Tom Allen, who's a fantastic comic, one of my dearest friends. We went on the road together last year, and we did 3 tour shows at Comedia in the end. And so I'm coming back by myself this year. So I'm really excited to come to Brighton. Generally, it's a really fun crowd, and they're really up for it, so it should be lovely.
Yeah, and slightly scary as well, I should think, if you're coming by yourself. If someone was thinking about coming, what would you do to kind of entice them?
I would say it's a fun night out. It's sort of something, I hope to think that it's something a bit different. It's a show that I'm enormously proud of, and the press in Edinburgh was amazing, and I got sort of 10s and maybe 15? No, how many? I've got so many great reviews. 10 4-stars and a 5-star review. And so I just got, it's just been a really great show, and I think that it's better than it was when it was in Edinburgh. And then also I've just shot it for a special on BBC, which is great, and it'll go out later in the year on BBC Three, and then I think a repeat on BBC Two. But come and see Stand Up in the Flesh. It's where it's at its absolute best, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. And it's quite cheap. So, I mean, what's there not to love?
If people wanted to find out more about you, where would they need to go?
SuziRuffell.com.
Awesome. Well, Suzi Ruffell, you're coming to the Comedia with your tour, Keeping It Classy, on the 10th of April, which is a Tuesday. Tickets are still available. Thank you very much, Suzi, for coming on today.
Thank you very much indeed. Cheers for having me.
The Jamie Dyer Show.